Welcome back to our frame animation playlist. In this particular video, we're just going to be looking at the animate property. So in previous video, we've gotten to see what the initial property means, how we can use it to start our animation. So for this, we'll just be looking at the animate property. And the animate property is just a key feature that allows you to define the target state of your motion components. Think about it like this. You have the initial where your animation starts from, and you have a target state where you want the particular animation to animate to. So say for example, you have a box that starts at the beginning of the page, and on animate it should go to the center of the page or to the other end of the page. So the animate property provided in your motion components in Framer Motion just gives you the ability to apply your target state. So it gives you the flexibility to change various properties of your motion component. You have the ability to change properties like the position of that particular element, the size, the opacity, the color, the box shadow, and a whole lot of different properties you could change depending on your requirements and depending on the kind of animation you're trying to achieve. Without wasting much time, let's jump into code and see what the animate property Framer Motion does. So right now we have VS Code open, and we just want to see an example for the animate property. Remember to start with Framer Motion in the motion component, and how we could do that. Remember, we just need to import it from Motion. So we just have a div and a div which we could just style. We just have to start with Tailwind CSS, our utility class. Let's say this should have a height of 200 pixels and a width of 300 pixels. Background color is just going to be black. Or let's try something else. Our background color is just going to be something thick red, and we could say we have a rounded side of let's zoom in properly. Okay, cool. So let's quickly have a preview in our browser and see what we have now. So we just have a box in the center of our page. Now if you remember from our previous video, we could actually do all the styling from the initial property, but right now we just choose to do it using our class. And we have access to the animate property, which is basically just gives you the ability to target the particular elements and the target state you want this particular element to animate to. Now if you see, we just have a box that is static in the center of our page that doesn't do anything or that doesn't move. So what we could do here, we could say we could animate this. Remember, we could animate different kind of properties. We could animate the dimension, we could animate the position, the color, the border, the rotation, opacity. We could also animate the 3D perspective of this particular element. Text layers, which is just like colors, padding, background color. Like there are a lot of properties we could actually animate. So for this example, we are just going to animate the dimension. So let's scale this to 1. And remember, with our initial, let's scale this to 1. Okay, so at this point, we could just say the initial of this particular element should just start from a scale of 0.5 and scale to 1. Okay, let's see this again. Cool. Now, just to explain what we try to achieve here. So this particular element starts from the scale of 0.5, which is the dimension of this particular element, and we are animating to scale of 1. Now, back to our definition of the animate property. Yes, it just gives you the ability to target a particular element and target the state of that particular element in the animation life cycle. In the sense like, okay, this particular element animates to this, because that's what we're doing here. So it starts from the scale of 0.5 on the dimension, and it animates 1. We could try something else. We could say, let me break this so we could see the styles. Since we already have a border radius of 6 pixels, we could just animate the border radius. Border radius is just gonna be let's say 100 pixels. Let's see how that looks. Okay, cool. So you see, it starts from the 6 pixel to this, and let's make it 100%. Okay, cool. We could also change the background color. Let's say purple. So for example purposes, let's take out this animate. Let's cut it out and see again. So now we just have a box that is on the scale of 0.5. It doesn't animate, nothing happens to it. So now in Framer Motion, for us to be able to apply animation to this particular element or this particular item, we make use of what? The animate property. And like we said, the animate property, we could animate different values. We could animate different CSS values of this particular property. And what we just did here, say, okay, on the scale of 1, border radius of 100%, and color of purple. So let's page again and see our example. It starts from here and animates 100%. And so we could try adding more example here. And let's try rotating this particular element. Let's rotate it a full rotation, and rotate our initial should just be 0, and have a rotation of that particular element when the animation starts. Yeah, you can see it. So it animates from 0 on the rotation of 0 basically, while also increasing our scale and border radius and background color to purple. Let's see it one more time. Okay, something I just wanted to point out real quick is when you're working with color motion, you cannot animate using the color name, right? If I pull up the documentation, we could see it says if you try to animate colors, is for example what we're doing here, working with the background color, we should use the hex value, the RGB value, or the HSLA value, right? Instead of using the names value like CSS names value directly. Cool. So I think with that, I hope we've been able to understand what the animate property does, what it means to make use of the animate. The animate is just like what you need to animate that particular property. Like I did before, if you take it out again, you won't get any animation, right? Nothing is going to happen to this element or this item on our page. Bring it back the animate. This is where we set the rules of how this particular element or item is going to animate. So in the next video, we'll be looking at the transition property, how we could use it, and try to explore some examples. See you in the next